spiritual application overall, but these physical attributes that, unless you're impaired, we have heart, mouth, eyes, and feet. Why is Solomon mentioning this? This has a specific meaning. Why is he talking about these physical attributes? Right. This is especially true for parenting to younger people. Right. Why would parents start going into specifics about physical? Right. Physical leads to spiritual. We know that even Jesus was mentioning that without using so many words with food, right? The people were hungry, feed them, right? Need to eat, then they can focus on spiritual things. That's true. Paul talks about in Corinthians, there's some sins outside the body, there's some sins in the body. That's true. These instructions are preventative, right? Why would an older person, a parent, a grandparent, tell a younger person about where they are physically, where they go physically, how they conduct themselves physically? Because these things are situational, I guess is how I should put it, right? The things that he's mentioning, you can apply to situations that you may find yourself in any age, but let's just think first as a young person. What would you be telling someone as a young person? Hey, be mindful of your heart, your mouth, your eyes, your feet. What physical situations are you trying to prevent them from being a part of, right? Because these are preventative instructions. Yes.
A loose living.
Okay.
Party, carousing, getting into an atmosphere that will cause you to have fleshly indulgence in that non-sobriety lifestyle.
Loose living, that's old English. I don't even know if somebody who has an Instagram or TikTok account even know what that phrase means. Loose living, that's a grandparent language, right? People don't speak that way. Loose living is loose, right? There used to be a time where someone would be like, be mindful of fast women or loose women. Again, I don't even know if people even know what that is anymore, right? What is loose living, right? He was using a lot of prodigal son language, loose living, carousing. These are terms, I don't know if kids know basic English anymore, let alone SAT or old English words, right? Loose living is getting involved in these things that have no structure. We live in a time period where society wants to be loose as a whole, which is why we no longer speak about loose living, because every day is loose living. From politics to the way you go to work, to the way you have your friends, your relationships, everything is loose. People don't even want to go to work at the same time anymore. People don't even want to go to work anymore. So that's a loose living. Because there was a time where you lived a structured life. You woke up, you did this on Monday, you did this on Tuesday, you did this on Wednesday, you did this on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you did this. That's a structured living. But now society is what? Loose. Right? You do things just freely whenever you choose. That's why it's hard to apply a phrase like loose living to modern society, because someone could be genuinely confused and say, what does that mean? Because I don't really see a structure. Loose living used to be society is doing this structurally, and then you have these men and women who are living loose. They're loosening the structure, but now it's reversed. Most of the people are loose, and you only have a certain amount of people who are living according to a structure, right? So this preventative measure you can use as evangelistic purposes that would be pretty radical in today's concept, because people don't expect to live this way, so therefore they don't really have these type of instructions. So if you start talking about preventative and people who have already been a part of certain things hear that, they may be your biggest supporter for these spiritual applications, because they may say, listen, I lived that way, right? Yesterday, me and my parents was talking about this. A couple of years ago at work, we were talking about just dating and living with somebody. Now, these people are sinners. I said, let's put religion and your spiritual beliefs to the side. You start dating someone and that person moves in, and you start to realize quickly that that relationship isn't what you want it to be long-term. I'm talking to a group of men. Therefore, you have a problem now because you allowed her to move into your place, or you moved into her place, and now you are sharing assets and bills. But when the relationship goes south, how do you end the relationship? Because now you or the other person or both of you also need a place to live, right? Two of the guys were laughing. One guy wasn't laughing. He said, oh, that happened to me. I would never live with somebody I'm not married with ever again. It took me 2 years to end that relationship and find a way tactfully for her to move out. But see, that I can give him preventative verses, but no one taught him that. Once he experienced that, even though his friends say, hey, do that again, he have a resolve where he would never do that again. If I can match that negative experience with some scripture, that person may be convinced of other preventative things, because he may say, oh, if I would have read this 3 years ago, I never would have been living with the girl for the 2 years and I was miserable. Then he said, well, what about the girl? She was blessed. She paid no bills. For 2 years, she moved on to her next relationship, financially more successful than she was when she met me. But see, no one taught him any preventative steps. See, this, if he would have had some preventative steps, he wouldn't have found himself in that same situation, because once he got in that situation, regardless of what the world was telling him, it didn't feel right or beneficial to him. And see, that's where if we can get these applications to our own lives as a preventative, right? Like if we can wrap our mind around the Bible is trying to prevent us from heartache and pain, or get us out of heartache and pain, and move our attention from a list of do's and don'ts, or that's a way of people used to live, or that would be nice if we lived this way or that way, right? We have to change our approach to scripture, right? We need to get back to the understanding that all scripture is designed for reproof and correction in the improvement of mankind in this physical world to get us to the spiritual world. So there are some preventative things to prevent us from heartache and pain, right? There are preventative things to prevent us. Solomon is giving some things about preventative measures, right? Feet is one of them. Sometimes you're going to have to use your feet like Joseph to remove your physical self from a spiritual negative situation. You're going to have to physically remove yourself. Sometimes you won't be able to. Sometimes it's going to be all around you where you can't physically remove yourself. So you're going to have to use your mind and your heart to remove yourself. You see what I'm saying? There's other things in life that will slow us down spiritually. Some will be in the physical and some will be in the spiritual. So all these things are, to the first comment, to prevent us from looseness, right? To prevent us from an unstructured lifestyle, to focus our lives on structure. Why, right? Before we transition, why? It's not an opinion or something that depends on what works for you. It's structure. God doesn't live, nor is he a being of chaos. So if you're trying to get to where he is, Wednesday night, we were looking at the parable of the rich man and Lazarus. First, you have to decide where you're trying to go. I don't assume everyone trying to go where I'm going. That's why I don't approach the world like some people. I have to first ask you, where are you going? Once you tell me where you're trying to go, because if you say you're not trying to get to God, then it makes sense to me why you live a certain way. But it's those that say they're trying to get to this quote unquote better place that I'm confused, because do you assume that that better place comes with some sort of instructions on how to get there? No, I just feel like I can do whatever I want and get a reward. Well, even Connecticut Lotto say you can't win if you don't play, right? It's just not logical to think I can do whatever I want and still get to some destination. So therefore, if there's some instructions on how to get there, what is my responsibility in the flesh to those instructions? And that's what we're looking at today. There's some instructions to life, regardless of what the world thinks, regardless of what society thinks, regardless of what churches think, regardless of families, regardless of individual, there's some instructions to life and how to maneuver physically and spiritually to get the benefit of how we were created, right? It's not about what would work best for us if we so choose. It's based off of our design. So therefore, there's a design that we were made in, and these instructions are to help us function in the design in which we were created. When we deviate from those instructions, we deviate from our design, and the output, the results are different, right? It's no different than, we use this analogy multiple times, putting a table together. If we deviate from the instructions, the person who actually made the table is going to say, that's not my table, because someone deviated from the instructions that I put inside the box, right? Very simple example for life. So these things we're talking about are preventative for a lifestyle that God is saying, this is how you were designed. Now, when we get to a second for marriage, the reason why we're harping about this is because that is an aspect of life that God designed. Adam didn't design that. God designed it. So therefore, when you start talking about marriage and people use this phrase like, this is what works for my marriage, I'm confused when people say that, because you don't have a marriage. Just like when people say, oh, don't tell me how to parent, but you don't have a child, because God formed kingdoms in the womb. What did you do? Well, oh, I created this child. What life can you create? Two people lay together. Two people lay together all the time. There's people laid up together right now. What do you mean? Even to this day, women die at an alarming rate for giving birth. So let's not make this seem like we have this control, because if it's not for God, life will not come forth. So therefore, when we start saying people shouldn't be able to tell me what to do with my last name and my house and all these things that we say, my, for things that we did not create or invent. God is love. Not that we knew love or loved God, but God loved us. So, oh, not that Adam looked at everything and was like, hey, I need somebody. All this smarts, Brother Stanley say all the time, Adam's so smart, is it? But why he didn't realize it was not a pair for him? Because some things is smartness is for God. He's seen all those things. He didn't get to the last thing. It was like, I don't see nothing look like me or you. God gave him something what he needed. So therefore, when you get to this next step in a few seconds, make sure your mind is in the start of the class. I'm going to focus on, let me hear some of these instructions for this concept as a whole. Then I have to apply those instructions to that aspect of my life, not this other way. Let me hear these instructions, and I'm going to pick and choose the things that I like from those instructions and apply it to my situation. No, right? So we got to move on from that. Yes, go ahead, brother.
Our culture has changed, therefore parenting has changed. There used to be a time, maybe about 20 years ago, when we used to see in our culture basic parental family living. We don't see that anymore. Our shows don't predict that anymore. Our movie theaters don't give us those kinds of films. And we have moved away from those instructional things. Now, like you started off in saying, those are old school sayings and words and concepts. People don't talk like that no more. People don't live like that anymore. And when we go into our society, into our culture don't live like that anymore. Therefore, babies are having babies, and they're having babies without instructions, and there's no instructions to give. So people don't even see this, don't even care about this. And when things run amok, they still can't figure out what to do because it's too late. When you give your child a freedom and don't give the child a parental guidance that it needs as it's growing up, you're not going to handle them when they become teenagers and young adults. It's a fact. And every parent sitting in here knows that. You don't parent, you get the results. David found that out. And this is David's son right here that's talking right now. This is Solomon. And he made mistakes parenting himself. He understands. So when we get away from the book, then there really is nothing else. Nothing else really matters.
Yeah, see, that is a good comment, because we're going to use that bridge. Hopefully I don't forget that last piece for question 5. And just as a tidbit, this will help me not forget, is when he was talking about David and Solomon and mentioned them as the characters. When we get to question 5, it's going to be talking about this seductive woman. Don't discount the benefit of, as a parent, telling your child what not to do because you did it. I don't know why children feel like if you do something, you can't tell me not to do it. I never understood that. I'm more inclined to listen to a convicted criminal in prison than a priest, because I don't want to go where he is. Right? So if he say, hey man, don't do this or you're going to end up like me, I'm more inclined to do that than a priest saying, be a good person. Because I'm going to say, man, priest, you look like you got boring life. Maybe you made bad decisions. But someone who is incarcerated say, Ellis, don't come here. But somehow kids in their mind think, Brother Stanley used, I think last week or a couple weeks ago, like his parents telling him don't smoke. Oh, you smoke. Right? Kids always, that's not just him, that's every kid feel like, well, you can't tell me what to do because you doing it. No, sweetheart, I'm trying to help you not to become like me. It's okay to tell your kid that. And then the reason why I said, don't let me forget that, is because question 5, that is a benefit that Solomon's children had to see. Do you want your life to end up like mine? Because when you start talking about the seductive ways of life, I succumb to those. Oh, so I can give you some advice to prevent you. Like I said, my coworker can give some advice to prevent yourself from being in that situation. But someone say, well, you never was in that situation, so how would you know? And he would be like, I was in that situation. And here I can tell you the step where I should have been like, no here, and no here, and no here, and no here. And then 24 months went by of his life. 24 months of his life went by. Now, that's a powerful testimony. What would it be if he grew up, had kids, and say, don't do that? And the kids be like, well, you did it, so I'm going to do it. Oh, I've been telling you this whole time, I made a mistake. So when we get to this aspect of the transition for this part of class, let's not forget that part, the benefit of passing along instructions or life experiences, even if they come from a negative place, right? Positive is our goal, right? Of course, we all would want to do the right thing, but we know we're not perfect. So is there still some benefit from hearing truth from bad experiences, bad sources, right? Solomon, in this case, is a horrible reference point to talk about marriage or morality. But he's giving great wisdom because the wisdom is from God and he made mistakes against it. So it's a good source of material for us as a witness for this. Sister Stanley?
Yeah, and I agree, because looking at Solomon, who better to give advice as to what not to do? The reason there is instruction is so that you don't, instruction given is so that you don't go down a path of destruction, right? And so if you're listening to what is being said, so the Bible is full of instruction, Proverbs is full of instructions, parents give instructions, right? It's not so much I'm giving you, and then maybe many times because we didn't live a life according to scripture, we're afraid to give instruction. Most parents want their children to have a better life than they did, right? If I dropped out of school, right, I want you to finish school. If I didn't go to college, I want you to go to college. If I didn't get a job, I want you to get a job. Why? These are basic elements of life, right? Without even the spiritual component. So if you add the spiritual component here, the instruction is, listen, we've got examples in the Bible that tells us what to do and what not to do. Listening to those sound instructions, bringing your children up in those instructions, whether you were raised in the church or not. Perhaps you weren't raised in the church, but here as an adult, you come to the knowledge of God, you see the instructions, you have a child. Are you going to raise them in an instruction of God, or are you going to raise them the way you were before you came to God? I think that is important when you start thinking about what is it that I'm supposed to do and what's the benefit of the instruction. Not so much how you live, right? In terms of, I can't say it because I live this way, so I can't tell it. Or the more reason to say to your kids, don't do this. Why? Because here's what's going to happen. How do you know? Because here's what happened to me. Here's what happened to my friends. Here's what happened to my cousin. Here's what happened to a family member. And just seeing what those examples are, I think makes a huge difference in how we act. And Proverbs is a book that's full of wisdom and guidance, but sometimes as Christians, we reject the instruction of God. And I'm not sure if we reject it because we don't believe what God is saying is true, and how if you raise your child, here's what's going to happen. I don't know if we believe the government. When the government says at 18, your child can do what they want to do. And we take that approach and we say, they're 18, they can do what they want to do, even if they're under your roof or not. I'm not sure what it is. I see a little bit of both actually in some households. I don't understand it, but I see it. But if you just follow the wisdom of Proverbs, and Proverbs, again, full of wisdom. 15, a fool despises his father's instruction, but he who receives correction is prudent. The correction is there for us. It's for us to live a better life. And if we're not constantly telling it to ourselves and our children, it is going to lead to destruction. We talk about the feet. Don't let your feet go to places, travel in places they shouldn't go. Your heart, your mind, the things that come out of your mouth, the people that you're with, hanging out. I don't know who you're hanging out with. That's a problem. If I don't know who your friends are, that's a problem. If I don't know where you're going, that's a problem to me. To me, as a parent, that's a problem because I still feel I'm accountable and I have instructions from God to deliver to you. And so I just think it's one of those things that we have to relinquish ourselves in thinking we know best and then rely on God and his instructions if we want those results.
Yeah, I wanted to read a definition. This is what I always think is interesting about humanity, right? If you just Google purity, right? A lot of words are this way. If you Google certain words and you look at anything, Webster Dictionary, dictionary.com, you'll notice that the definitions sound highly religious. Purity is freedom from adulteration or contamination, freedom from immorality, especially of a sexual nature. First of all, in a second, when we start getting into these questions, right, we're going to talk about adultery, right? This concept from as adultery in the world shouldn't even be a definition. I don't feel like people really care about that. So why is that even a worldly definition? People not really in the masses going to care about questions 5, 6, and 7 that we are going to read in a second. But you know what's interesting is you care if it happens to you, right? But even I know people that this has happened to, they're not dogmatic about me not doing it, let's say, but it happened to them, which is confusing to me. Meaning people in the world, something will happen to them negatively based off of something we can say, well, you know, spiritually that's wrong. And they experienced the wrong and it was heartbreaking to them. But they're not emphatic, let's say, to tell me not to do it. That's the part that's confusing. That's why history repeats itself. Because we don't do a good job as human beings of preventative with loved ones. Hey, I did this. You shouldn't do that, right? Because people attribute maybe that happened to you and that's your fault. That's what people really be. Maybe this happened to you because that's your fault. I live different and this is not going to happen to me. Solomon is challenging that. Solomon is saying maybe these things are wrong because they're wrong, regardless of if I do them or you do them or what happens, right? So let's look at this chapter 5. Someone read for us 15 through 21. 15 through 21. 15 through 23, because the next week we're going to do another chapter. So 15 through 23, because 21 ends in the middle of a thought. So we can carry on to the end of it.
Drink water from your cisterns and running water from your own well. Should your foundation be dispersed abroad, springs of water in the streets, let them be only your own and not for strangers with you. Let your fountain be blessed and rejoice with the wife of your youth. As a loving deer and a graceful doe, let her breast satisfy you at all times and always be enraptured with her love. For why should you, my son, be enraptured by an immoral woman and be embraced in the arms of a seductress? For the ways of man are before the eyes of the Lord, and he ponders all his paths. His own iniquities entrap the wicked man, and he is caught up in the cords of his sin. He shall die for lack of instruction, and in the greatness of his folly he shall go astray. Okay,
verse 23, he shall die for a lack of instructions. In the greatness of his own folly he should go astray. First 3 verses is like a poem. Drink water from your own cistern, and running water from your own well. If you don't, your fountains could be dispersed abroad. Streams of water will be in the streets, right? What is that? That sounds like, oh, okay, he's talking about irrigation. No. He's not talking about irrigation, right? What is he talking about? What does he mean when he say drink from your own cistern? If not, the water gonna be all over the street. What is he saying? Right? Because it's not about irrigation. Oh, okay. So this is, you got to be mindful of your own spouse, what you got, right? Your own goodies. Don't be worried about somebody else's goodies, because you're going to look around and your goodies going to be in everybody else's hand, right? This as a concept, different cultures phrase this differently. What he's saying is you have to love the one you're with. Right now it's a song. Well, if I can't be with the one I love, let me love the one. I mean, not really, right? Because that's kind of like I'm the player B. I don't want that, right? Like I need your attention, right? I need your undivided attention. Now let's talk about modern times, right? We're going to use a phrase that's probably not too popular once you go past like 20 years or so. We were talking about company. Sister Stanley was talking about be mindful of the company you keep. Let's talk about that from adults. Let's talk about work and a work spouse, because this is a real thing. A work spouse is somebody who you work with, and everybody at the job can only assume by the way the two of y'all interact that y'all have some sort of relationship outside of work. Everyone would have to assume that, because this person always sitting at the edge of your desk, you always sitting at the edge of the other person's desk, y'all going on walks around the office, y'all going on lunch, y'all finish each other's sentences, y'all laughing at the same thing, you watch the same shows. I can only assume, because anybody who's blind can tell when two people like each other. Anybody, right? It only be the two people trying to tell the rest of us, no, we don't like each other. What do we be saying? Well, I was born at night, not last night. Look at the two of you spitting. Is almost the relationship almost manifesting right in front of my own eyes. That's how much the two of you like each other. Therefore, your attention is divided. That's a small thing. Let's say you never have any other interaction with that person, not even sexually, but your focus, your attention is divided. So if you have your attention on something else, if you took your eyes off of the road and looked to the left or the right, remember he said, don't turn left or right in chapter 4. I can't look left, right, and in front of me at the same time, even for an instant, which is why they say don't text and drive. Because even if you looked at the phone for less than 2 seconds, you could get into an accident. So it's not about the amount of time, and it's not about the end result. See, it's about the attention. Did you take your attention off of your spouse? Yes, you did. Oh, but it's not a big deal. Well, see, again, not a big deal is quantifiable by your opinion. Attention is attention. It's the difference between beauty and pretty. Pretty is how you feel. Beauty is universal. There's no such thing as a rainbow or a waterfall isn't beautiful. You just not true. Pretty is what you like. So you thinking something isn't a big deal. I hate when people argue this way. Oh, that's not a big deal to me. Sweetheart, I'm talking about it's a big deal to me, though. That's why it's a big deal, because you don't see it as a big deal. If you stop looking at things from your point of view and recognize there's someone else in a relationship, therefore, maybe we won't be arguing about this. But people do things because it's not a big deal to them. Solomon is saying this is a big deal, period. Because if you take your attention off of your spouse, something bad could happen. That relationship could no longer be your own, which is how it was intended. Eve was for Adam and Adam for Eve. And next thing you know, the two of them be all over the garden. That's what Solomon is trying to prevent. You know why? Because Solomon was for a phrase people use today, everybody. Solomon was for every single person. Every woman who came around, Solomon was for her. It was not what exclusivity did Solomon have? Solomon was for every tent, every palace, every queen or princess that came. He was for the streets. This guy was everywhere, everywhere. How are you telling me something about morality or love? Or you literally was for everybody. Well, just name somebody who wasn't for you. It'd be hard pressed probably to find a woman in Jerusalem in this day and age that this man wasn't for. He looking at this from the other angle to say, you know what? When you do that, when my attention is on this person and this woman and that woman, the back, when I'm not turning around, all of the heartache and pain, right? It's like when you see a boat going through still water, the front is still because the boat haven't got through that body of the water yet. But if you turn around, the boat has disrupted the whole ecosystem of the lake. You can look back for sometimes miles. Look, all the fish are riled up because the boat just came through and did whatever it wanted to do. That was Solomon's life. He was just bulldozing through, doing whatever he wanted to do without ramifications of his actions. So the first part to start is attention, right? Now, marriage is hard work. Anyone married 2 minutes will tell you that. Your focus has to be on a goal. What is your goal? Any two people who are about to get married, if they can't tell me what the goal of the marriage is, as soon as they start talking and I don't hear a goal, I'm gonna fall asleep. Because two people have to become one. And therefore, if you put an oxen on the left and an oxen on the right and yoke them together, and this oxen whispered in my ear what his goal is, and this oxen whispered in my ear what her goal is, and I said, ready, set, go, and the goals, because I heard both goals, is not aligned, what will happen to the oxen and the yoke? Well, if one oxen is stronger than the other oxen, they could very well break the yoke because they're not yoked even. So if at the start of your marriage, you can't tell me, if I put you in two separate rooms, hey, what's the goal of the marriage? I didn't ask you what's your goal. What's the goal of this marriage? Can you give me some goals, some physical goals, some financial goals, some spiritual goals, some emotional goals? And you can't tell me, how you about to get married? You about to do what? What are you about to do, right? Just like if you go to get a job somewhere, don't in a job interview, they ask you sometime, hey, have you researched something about the company? No. Why you want to work here then? Well, I needed a job. No, that's the same thing as if I can't be with the one I love, let me love the one no, I'm not looking for you to marry me because you just looking to be married to some person that breathes air. I'm looking for, why are you trying to marry me? Why are you trying to work here at this company? Oh, because I did some research. It looks like you did this, this, and this. This aligns with my moral compass. What you do here aligns with my financial goals. Oh, okay. So it sounds like we're a good match, right? Because you spent some time vetting us and we spent some time vetting you. What people do nowadays is, oh, we've been dating a long time. Oh, a long time is all we need. Oh, sweetheart, let's go ask some people married 30, 40 years is long time, all you need. No, people say, well, 30, 40 years, I still could get a divorce. A long time don't mean nothing. Oh, I've been with this person a long time, might as well. Might as well not really gonna work. See, we lose sight from the beginning. Well begun is half done. Let's talk from the beginning. What is your goal? What are you trying to accomplish? And if you were to get upset because somebody asking you why you getting married, then I'm also going to fall asleep, because what is there to be upset about? Just like if somebody asks you why you want to work at that job, shouldn't you be able to give them some response, even a basic one? So first we have to talk about goal alignment. That means from the beginning, let's carry that on. As you go on in your life, anybody married for 2 minutes will attest to this. We need to make sure our goals still are aligned, probably even more so than at the beginning. Why? Well, because one oxen, what if this oxen start getting sleepy or distracted? What if we going in a straight line and the oxen on the right start looking at her right? And I'm still going straight to the goal we decided yesterday. And she thinking, man, God said every day is a new day. I want a new goal today. And the oxen on the left say, no, we already agreed to this goal. I'm going here in the middle. Man, look, I looked over to the right. The grass looked way better over there. Let's go graze on this grass. Now we have a problem because the goals are misaligned, right? Only could be one chef, or the dish is going to be a buffet, right? I was looking for a plate of food. Well, I couldn't decide. So the sous chef made something, this chef made something, that chef made something else. Therefore, we have to make sure our goals are continually aligned. To maintain that takes time and effort. There's no way I can focus on two different situations and make sure both goals are aligned. Impossible. Now, the world will tell you that's possible, but it's not. No way I can be remembering two different sets of birthdays, two different sets of favorite colors, two different sets of movies. And now you just start adding 2 to 3 to 4. I don't. That's why some people don't go on to move with someone else. You know why? Memes on the internet say, no, I don't want to be, got to remember somebody's favorite color again. That's where you just be like, man, the devil I know better than the devil I don't know. That's how people end up in these lifelong situations, because they feel like, I don't want to go through the hassle of unlearning someone and learning someone else. The time it takes to become one is a lifetime. That's why it was designed that way. If you take your focus off the goal of becoming one, even at the 8 hours you at work, you are failing your marriage, because that 8 hours, even though you work, you need that 8 hours. to focus on the goal. That's how much time it takes to become one. You need every second of the day, to the point where Paul said, when you marry, it's going to be hard to do spiritual things all the time because your focus is your spouse. So therefore, you're going to have to do spiritual things when you have time. But how come I be seeing this mostly happen with men doing all these spiritual things, religious things, but not all these family or wife things? Because that's out of order from the Bible he preaching out of. When you start talking about ministry and evangelism, is a concept that we mix together, but those are two different things. Paul was an evangelist. He go here for a little bit, he go there for a little bit. What we thinking of ministers is really what our elders, right? Elders is the one who stay and who get involved with your family. That's an elder, right? That's not an evangelist, right? Evangelists go preaching the word here. But churches won't hire a single evangelist who can dedicate his 100% time to the church. Churches want somebody who have a wife with kids. Huh? How are you gonna? I'm gonna help y'all. I'm helping my last name. What are y'all talking about? No, brother, you gotta come over. Come over to where? To our house. We having problems. No, sweetheart, we too. We all having problems. What you mean? My kids having problems too. See, once we start changing things to fit what we looking for, but my own Bible tells me that a married man focus have to be his wife first, not spiritual things first. My Bible tells me that. Am I wrong? Someone want to show me somewhere where it say that? First is your last name as a man. Then you can tell me about saving somebody else, because in the plane, you got to put your own mask first. Because when you get to the gates of heaven, God not going to ask you about all these Bible studies you had if you married first. First, you're going to say, hey, what about Eve and Cain and Abel and Seth? What happened to them? Eve right here, Seth right here, Abel was with you. And Cain, you know, what did you do? Well, I just was worried about the other people you created. I was trying to do right by them. What about these people right here? See, we don't think that way because we think this is what works for me. Focus. What is your focus? You can only focus on one thing. When you go to the eye doctor and they put this here and put this there and put both, it be letters. He or she say, read the middle one. You squint, cheat, because you don't want to get the glasses. MNB, he say that's a C. C, no, you need glass. No, let me try again. You can't focus. You can't read that. That's what the eye doctor is for. How come we lose sight of that from a spiritual standpoint? How are you going to read 3 lines at the same time? You can't focus on multiple things. Therefore, there's a time and a place, this same author says. So I have to make sure that my focus is on the right thing, or my life will be out of order. What today's topic is from a marriage standpoint, I have to make sure that my goals are aligned. So some of the time in a week, 7 days that I'm going to have to dedicate time, I said, actual time is going to be, I have to set some time where the two of us going to become one. People marry a long time when they hear to say, oh, I'm trying to say less time to becoming one. Why? Because after you spend a lot of time with somebody, after a while, you realize what? I don't want to spend a lot of time with this person. That's what newlyweds don't understand. The people who marry a long time be like, you know how you saying it's taking so much time and so much effort and all this? After a while, he gonna be him, I'm gonna be me, she gonna be her, I'm gonna be me. Let's just be, and we just exist. Again, God gonna say, I hear that, but that's not what I was looking for. I'm looking for 2 to become 1. Yeah, but he like different things, she like different things, and this, I don't wanna do it. Once you stop putting forth the effort, you won't get the same results. Bodybuilders, right? People you say, wow, that person looked like. I always admire someone who can work out and change their body. You look at them and be like, Is that the same kind of human being as me? Because I don't look nothing like that. But as great as they are physically, if they don't maintain working out, after a while, the muscles will what? And you see them and be like, is that the same person? Because I didn't maintain. That's how relationships are. If I don't maintain, see, that's why it takes some time. So if I start changing my focus in year 3, year 5, year 7, year 30, that means I'm no longer working towards that goal. Now, when we started, we talked about making sure our goals are aligned as couples, right? God has a goal that oversees your goal, right? The umbrella, that the two shall become one, right? That means unity. Even in your New Testament, Paul starts talking about something that is very, very not popular with couples, about not denying your spouse your body. God knows we don't want to talk about that. About making sure you present yourself the best way possible, which is sort of what Solomon is saying, to you, your own spouse, right? Because it starts talking in verse 19, as a loving deer and a graceful doe, let her breast satisfy you at all times and always be in rapture with her love. That sounds like a song. Good 80s singer, female singer that talks about caught up in the rapture of love, R&B. What is Solomon saying? Hey, the two of you should have a focus on you. And therefore, you should be doing things that please her. She should be doing things that please you. And the two should be working on a committed form of your relationship. That's going to take time. It's going to be an effort that the two of you are going to have to move towards this common goal. What will that impact, Solomon? Everything. It'll impact the way you think, Ellis, the way you dress, Ellis, the way you eat, Ellis, the way you talk, where you go, who you hang out with. Because what you'll start realizing is, just like when you're trying to achieve a physical goal or a financial goal, if you're trying to work out and everyone in the house not trying to work out, it's going to hinder your goal. If you're trying to save money and all your friends are trying to go on trips, it's going to hinder your goal. So you may have to pick your feet up and move them to another situation because of the next stage of your life and your goal. But people don't want to hear that. Sister Steen, I think was talking about teenagers don't want to hear that. The problem is teenagers become adults. Then you dating or married to someone, you think to yourself, who raised you? What world did you live in that you think the world revolves around you? You ever meet somebody like that? Mm-hmm. And they let you say, okay, let's tell us what you're looking for. Let's say you just say, hey, you know what? I want us to work and do better. I know I have some things to work on. I know you have some things to work on. I just want us, to be, more intimate. It's not even about just physical things, just like intimate, vulnerable with one another and sharing things and this, that, and the third. And you let the other person go. And about you? Yeah, you know what? I just really, Ellis is like, he's so annoying. And the person, well, all right, but you don't got nothing on your list, anything to work together? You ever notice when somebody's speaking selfishly, right? They just speaking from their point of view, and you wonder, oh, somebody must have let you do what you wanted to do as a child. Had to be, because that's the only way you got to adult level that way. And those people clash, right? Because they can't see eye to eye, because one person, now I have to blame their parents, raised them to believe that the solar system is incorrect. It actually orbits around them. But that's not how life is. So I have to now focus as an adult and say, wait a minute, I was raised a little incorrect. I have to think about someone else. For some people's personality, that is what they struggle with marriage, in the little daily things, because they were not raised to put someone above themselves. So when they get into a marriage and somebody be like, hey, you ate already? And you think, yeah, I was hungry, so I ate. And the person is like fighting, and you're like, why are you fighting about that? It's not about the food. It's about you didn't think of him or her. But you saying, I did think of you, not like I want a divorce. The other person say, well, I do, because you don't consider me. See, it's misaligned. That's why when we started, parenting is so important, because well begun is half done. If you can start off with a good foundation, does it make it impossible for you? No, it just makes more work. That means some people have to work harder for physical results. Some body types have to go to the gym more. Is that not correct? Some people could go do one crunch and look in the mirror in a six-pack, and you thinking, how is this possible? Some people can read the book one time and go get an A on a test. I had a roommate that drank night and day. He's a doctor now. He drank night and day. And I mean, I'm talking about 12 p.m. to 11:59 a.m. He will go to biology class, ace. And I'd be like, how is this possible? He just ace it. Then when he ace it, you got to celebrate. He go back to drinking. Some people could study night and day, and they thank God for a C. Because some people have to work harder at certain things. If we know this in the world, how do we lose sight of this from spiritual things? That's why sometimes somebody gonna be like, hey, what's the big deal? The big deal is my last name, my address. I can't do this or that with you because I have to spend more time working on my goal of purification of the marriage. That just may be to you. That's not a bad thing. That's why I was saying earlier, it's not bad to talk about those shortcomings, right? Some marriages will say, hey, we're working towards this because of things that me or she or him or both of us did before. So we're trying to work past that baggage. Maybe you don't know about that. So therefore, that's why we're trying to move in this. Oh, someone say, okay, now I get it. All right, that's good. You know, you all got to work a little harder. Again, not impossible, but you just keep aligned with your goal. And that's what Solomon is saying is make sure your focus is on your family, because when you move your focus, it's going to open up the possibility for your family to start growing to other people that's not involved and shouldn't be involved. Right now, you're going to have, I'm holding her hand, I can't even say her hand. I might be holding his hand and he holding a hand. And then it's just like a whole circle of hands. That's this verse is saying you all over the street now. The water is everywhere. The water just flowing through the city. And we're no longer doing those things which are conducive to God. Look at question 6. What is the divine alternative to being with the sinful woman, right? The divine alternative is what we've been alluding to the second half of this class, which is focus. I have to make a conscious effort to focus on one spouse, a spouse, the spouse, not spouses. That's why I said not a work spouse. I can't be focused on a work spouse and saying, this is just work or modern time. I'm just texting them. This is just my friend. Oh, this is my homeboy. This is my homegirl. Oh, I knew her for a long time. Let me help you. God bless who you knew for a long time. You need to unknow that. You don't need to look. Girls that I know that's married, don't text me happy birthday. Don't remember my birthday. Ain't you married to somebody? Why how did you wake up on December 22nd and say, it's Ellis's birthday? Who's Ellis? No, please don't do that. You just don't do that. No, you know, we good friends at sweetheart. Let's create what I like to tell people in the world, boundaries. Let's make a boundary. Just like Abraham was entertaining a rich man, but then he said, besides all of that, you can't go from this side and I can't go over to that side because it's a chasm. So we shouldn't even be talking because there's a boundary. But see, today don't have boundaries because we have Facebook and Instagram and text messages. I could link up with somebody from pre-K. Remember we was in pre-K? I'd be like, no, but you sure do look cute. We was in the same pre-K. Yeah, remember? I don't remember, but let's keep talking now. Right? Because you have access to people in a way just 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, 2,000 years ago, you didn't have access to people. Right? So therefore, once you have access, if you give a foothold to access, what can happen, sadly, is just that small access of, hey, didn't you go to the same preschool as me? And now Ellis's focus is on two different things. See, now my focus is divided. Therefore, when I'm laughing, hee and ha ha, kiki and ha ha over here in this text message thread, I'm not focused on this thread. See how that works? I'm over here waking up next to somebody who I could say good morning to. I'm too worried about sending a good morning text. See how that works? Hey, how are you? How's your day? God bless her in her day. What that got to do with me? People say, that's just my friend, I love this one. They just going through a hard time. Sweetheart, it's a pandemic. We all going through a hard time. Let people at their address deal with their problems. You need to focus on your address. That's what Solomon is telling his children. Focus on what God gave your blessing. We have to break these things down in its simplest form in today. The reason being is today is complex. And if you stay at the high level, what people are smart, they'll say, I'm not doing anything with that person. That's why I started at the base, the down here, like work, where people say, well, that's not a big deal. When you say something not a big deal in today's life, anything, the smallest thing could be a big deal to someone. So what is the focus? What is the attention? And today, this brings a lot of chaos, not only to just young people, but to us as adults, because it breaks our attention, right? Like just like school follows you home now, work follows you home, right? Like I can never detach. And now we're not even commuting as much anymore. I can't even detach on the ride home because work is in my other room. So therefore, these things hinder us because we're always attached to every aspect of our life, and we never have any peace or freedom from those things. So what Solomon is saying, I think, is even more applicable in today's mind, because we have to detach from these distractions, because if we don't, they'll keep hindering us. And then question 7, is a sexual relationship a sinful thing in itself? Is it something which cannot be enjoyed by God-fearing people? According to this chapter, where is the real joy to be found in these matters, right? This question 7, I always like this because I feel you either look at it one of two ways. You either look at it as like, this is a silly question, right? Everyone knows about a marriage bed, right? That's how some people look at it. Or this is why it's not a silly question. Some denominations take this to the extreme and start putting sexual restrictions even on the marriage bed. When you're looking at spiritual things, don't discount people's religious baggage. Just because you never heard of something doesn't mean somebody could say, hey, where I'm coming from, people taught me not to do this, not to do that, not to use this, not to use birth control or contraception, and not to go get this. And you'll be like, well, who told you that? Oh, they said, even if you marry, you can't do this, or you can't go here. Right? You got people married, scared to do something around church. What are you talking about? Aren't y'all married? Yeah, no, but I can't laugh or discount that because they may have been raised in that. Never discount someone's religious baggage. There's a lot of Christian denominations that shackle any form of sexual expression amongst married people. That's true. And what that does is cause confusion, because then people thinking like, well, then what are we doing? And no one ever answers it. Oh, they just say, no, you just sinful. God will clear your heart, this, that, and the third. We can't be that way, right? We can't start binding onto people what's not in this Bible. And these are things we don't feel comfortable talking about, right? We don't feel comfortable talking about financial things, and we definitely don't feel comfortable talking about sexual things. But I can't read this and talking about don't be involved with someone else's sister and someone else's spouse, and then now start applying what I shouldn't be doing with that person's spouse to what I can't do with my spouse, because he never said that. He said your focus shouldn't be on his or her that's outside of your marriage. Your focus should be on your marriage. Actually, verse 19 is the direct opposite of that religious baggage. Your focus, even sexually, should be on your spouse. That's what Paul was saying. Your body's focus should be on your spouse. So I wanted to make sure we got to cover that, because there is a lot of religious confusion about verse 7, right? And I say religious because that's structure, right? Therefore, there's groups of people that teach and preach certain things religiously, even with the marriage bed, that I don't find in my Bible. And what happens is people take that baggage on with them, and no one ever answers their question. So they assume that this is either what God wants, and they'll either double down on it or rebel against it. We have to do a good job as the church to try to always free up people's religious baggage as well. Hey, God came to free you. I'm sorry somebody taught you that, but that's not correct. Here's the scriptures more accurately and free people from it. Okay, next week, we're going to look at chapter 6 the dangers of adultery, right? We're going to switch from only focus on preventative from a marriage standpoint, which was 5, 6, and 7. We're going to go to chapter 6 and look at the offshoot of if you go down this pathway and what will be the ramifications of it, and also give some scriptures to help prevent from that. So next week, do two things. One is Proverbs 6, 25 through 33. But then also, if you can read 1 Corinthians 6, Proverbs 6, 25 through 33, and then also 1 Corinthians 6, because that's going to give you a complete understanding. So Proverbs 6 and 1 Corinthians 6. All right, let's transition into our worship service at this time. If you want to read ahead, you can also go to chapter 7 for Proverbs. If you're doing your personal or family reading this week, the concept is being pure. Proverbs 4, 5, 6, and 7. If you had time, it would be beneficial to read all of those together. All right, thanking everyone online for joining us. We're going to end our live stream at this time and give everyone about 3 or so minutes to gather themselves, and then we will start our worship service momentarily. Thank you and God bless.